With myself, I like to think of myself as like a user. So I like to really focus on like one particular company and really become like a subject matter expert on that one company. So that's just my personal preference. Agency recruitment is kind of like more down that path, whereas if someone wants to become like a laser and really test focus on like one company and all its products and becoming that expert, internal recruitment might be more interesting. Myself, I like to always kind of continue the conversation with candidates, even after they sign, even when they're like set to start, like every couple of weeks, just to really engage, and it really gives like a slightly more personal touch and make it feel like less transactional. When it comes to really establishing a rapport with not only candidates, but also like hiring managers or executives. A simple "I don't know" will buy you more respect than an individual trying to like wing it.
Hi all, good morning. So today I have Clifton with us, who likes to be referred as Cliff just because Clifton reminds of his parents being angry at him, so we will refer to him as Cliff. Cliff graduated from Brooklyn College with a BS in psychology and a B in sociology with a GPA over 3.95, so he definitely is very smart. He went to NYU School of Engineering with MS in management with a double concentration in project management and technology management. Let's welcome Cliff on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, who has been in the recruitment space for quite a while and is currently working and managing technical and product recruitment for Foursquare, a company that is rapidly growing. Hi, Cliff. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Of course. So, Cliff, can you tell us about your weekend first? Because, I mean, you did give me a brief about it, but what about other people to hear about as well?
Oh, yeah, of course. So basically, this was the first time I was on an airplane since like pre-COVID, which feels like another lifetime ago. And I went to San Diego for a few days to visit some friends. Then I went to Las Vegas for an EDM festival, DC Vegas. That was a great time. We went back to New York right before Memorial Day weekend, and then I just relaxed, did a little bit of barbecuing, and now we're here.
Okay. So, Cliff, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad you had fun. Everyone deserves a break, and seems like you certainly got that break. So thank you for sharing that. So, Cliff, next question for you would be, what got you into recruitment? You studied psychology, you studied sociology. I understand that aspect of human element, but then you went into management and everything. So what got you into recruitment?
Yeah, honestly, when I graduated back in 2011, it wasn't the best time to look for a job. So I actually really, in all honesty, fell into recruitment. But one thing that has kept me in recruitment for so long is it really combined my passion for just really understanding motivations from candidates. So there was a lot of alignment from recruitment and psychology and sociology for understanding the micro and macro. So that's what kept me in recruitment for so long. So when I was more on the agency side, that was just really an opportunity for me to gain understanding, because I never studied in college to become a recruiter, so I just volunteered. But I noticed it was a lot of applicability and transferable between my education to what I want to do as a career. And I discovered I had a natural knack for recruiting, so I've stayed in recruitment since. I did make a transition from external agency recruiting to internal recruiter, which is when I joined Compass at that time.
Okay, so you've been in the agency world, but then you've become an internal recruiter. Can you maybe explain what were some of the pros and cons for each? Because I've had people who liked working for agencies more. I've had people who liked working as an internal recruiter more. So we'd love to understand more about your experiences.
Yeah, of course. And I always like to say this as a disclaimer. These are just my perspective. So agency style recruiting. So I love both styles of recruiting. For me personally, the reason why I kind of transferred from external recruiting, which on the agency side is more focused on account management. You basically are managing multiple accounts. So let's just say an AT&T account, a Bank of America account, and it's more focused on account management and business development and for multiple clients. With myself, I like to think of myself as a laser. So I like to really focus on one particular company and really become a subject matter expert on that one company. So that's just my personal preference. So that's why I had an inclination to move in-house or to an internal recruiter, because with that, I was able to focus and become an expert on one company, all their products, really understanding the org structure, design, interviewing teams, hiring teams. So it allowed me to really become a master at that one particular company. So that's kind of the one pro. So that's one of the main pros of internal recruiting is you really get to become that subject matter expert for one company. Whereas with external recruiting or agency recruiting, you become basically a jack of all trades, and you can't really specialize as much. So I would advise anyone who's interested in really becoming a jack of all trades agency recruiting is kind of like more down that path, whereas if someone wants to become like a laser and really test focus on like one company and all its products and becoming that expert, internal recruiting might be more of interest.
Okay, no, that's definitely very helpful. And I love to ask a follow up question because I think there's a lot of recruiters, there's a lot of needs for recruiters. Usually, sometimes recruiters reach out to candidates and they don't know enough information about a company, which is why what you said, being a subject matter regarding your specific company is so important. But we'd love to understand how things have changed since the pandemic when it comes to recruitment itself, Cliff.
Yeah, I think with the pandemic, what essentially happened is the needs for recruiting will always be there. There will never be a time when all companies completely stop hiring. I think what has happened since the pandemic is, especially in the past like 2 or 3 years, what has happened in tech in general and the stock market. I think what has happened is individuals, companies, and investors, they're becoming more strategic with their money. So now there's no like passion. Now people are becoming more strategic when it comes to hiring. So I would say it's really important to always understand the needs of the hiring, like especially like when I recruit individuals to Foursquare, I always try to really understand what this particular opportunity is there for, how it can be in alignment with the individual's career path. So like one of the questions I ask on every single recruiter screen that I do is essentially understanding their motivators, because some individuals, they want to have impact. They want to be exposed to like a full life cycle. That's only one singular function, which is pretty common when you work at like a big tech company, that you would only get to work on one particular project or one particular feature. Which with a company of like Foursquare size, you really gain that exposure and like that internal mobility. So I really think as a recruiter, one skill set that has been very, very helpful, and I would suggest this to anyone who's interested in recruiting, whether agency recruiting or internal recruiting, it's really this concept of curiosity. This one quality has helped me so much. And of course, the second one that has helped me equally as well is as honesty. Because there will be times when, even till this day, when a candidate might ask me a question and I don't know the answer, sometimes people might want to quote unquote like wing it. I get that because I feel like honestly, I'm the first one to tell a candidate, we're like, hey, that's a great question. I don't know. And just that kind of transparency right there has helped when it comes to really establishing a rapport with not only candidates, but also like hiring managers or executives. Simple, I don't know, will buy you more respect than an individual trying to like wing it.
Okay, no. I think honestly, that's been one of the trending articles on LinkedIn, how to be much more honest and transparent to retain more employees. Because a lot of people are leaving their jobs just because they don't feel like they're part of a company which makes them feel welcome, a company which they can trust. So thank you so much for sharing that, Cliff. 2 more questions, Cliff. The next question would be, I think before the pandemic and everything, a recruiter's job was to just get a candidate, make them go through the hiring process, and then offer them the job, and that's where it ended. So they used to join and everything, but now a lot of candidates accept the job offer and then don't show up. So they've ghosted you essentially. So how do companies make sure that this does not happen within them? Because there's so much time, effort, money that goes into finding the right candidate. So how do you avoid such issues?
Yeah, the way that this goes sound like a very simple solution, and you might wonder, hey, why doesn't every company do this? Good question. The way that I actually have really reduced the likelihood of that happening, and you basically like hit the nail on the head. A lot of times when companies hire an individual, they get them to sign the paperwork, and then they don't hear back until it's like the start date. So there's like a really. So what I like to do is really continuously, like before candidates start, continue to foster those relationships. Myself, when I do like more like leadership recruitment, where to give a glimpse into like what leadership recruitment is, typically they start months in advance. So with myself, I like to always kind of continue the conversation with the candidates, even after they sign, even when they're like set to start, like every couple of weeks, just keep them really engaged, and it really gives like a slightly more personal touch and make it feel like less transactional. So I always like to use this terminology when I recruit for my team as well. It's always important to recruit in less of like a transaction, which unfortunately recruiting is often seen as a transaction where a company has a role, the recruiter fills this role, and then it's like the next one. I like to recruit in both from a recruiter to a candidate and also from a recruiter to the company as both a partnership. So think of it as like being a partner with the candidate. So like even after they accept, you still guiding them through, you still being accessible, and just like that personal touch and rapport building greatly reduces the likelihood of ghosting. Because when you really think about this, concept of ghosting, and I've read this in a few articles, where oftentimes it's easy to ghost someone who you don't have rapport with because you don't have like that personal connection, compared to when candidate or an employee feels connected to the company, then that greatly reduces the chances of like them getting ghosted.
Okay, no, I think you highlighted some very important points that a lot of companies should take into consideration, because I think a lot of companies are failing to do so. And I think being personal and making sure that the communication is there always showcases that you are very interested in the candidate and want them to join, which is something that's important. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing I like to do, and I actually advise my hiring team to do this as well, is even after candidate accepts and stuff like that, to still maintain a conversation between the hiring manager and the candidate, because it kind of gives like more with the context. So it's not just the recruiter and the candidate, but it's like the hiring manager and the candidate, and also the individual's teammates and the candidate. So it's really like gives you like more points of contact instead of just like one single individual, which has really helped a lot. And I've actually gotten some pretty positive feedback from the candidates who joined us, and then they say like, hey, after I got an offer, I got so many thank you emails or looking forward to working with the emails. And then they were like, hey, it really felt like I was joining a team. Because especially in this age of like working remotely, it's hard to foster that kind of solidarity. So every little bit helps, and over communication definitely helps. Like, does it replace it entirely? Of course not, but it does provide a better solution than like no contact.
No, I love the humanistic approach that you're taking, because I think working remote and everything is fun, of course, but then you do miss being part of a team. You do miss seeing your colleagues and everything. So it's the little things that matter and make you feel like you're part of a company where you are cared for and you are a contributor that is making a difference within the team. So thank you so much for sharing that, Cliff. Cliff, other than that, our time is up. I love how your journey started off by studying psychology, sociology, and how you fell into recruitment. And you decided to stay in it, because I think it's definitely a tough job, especially because there's so many factors that you can't control, and people tend to quit and eventually move on. But you, with your persistence and making sure that the roles that you were trying to fill and the candidates that you found for those roles specifically stayed, and you managed to find exceptional talent for the companies that you've worked for. So thank you so much, Cliff. It was an absolute pleasure.
Likewise. Have a great rest of the day.